Let's rock and roll. All right. I think
we're on all three.
we are. Let's see. Check, and check. All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody, to A Democrat and a Republican Walk into a Bar. I'm your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banier.
And I am your Republican host, Sean Hartman.
All right. We are here at Ollie's, hanging out for the last vestiges of a legend here in Cape Coral.
We're still waiting to figure out what exact changes are going to be happening. We do still plan on doing this podcast, so just keep following the Facebook and the Instagram and all of that for updates on what we're going to be doing next and how we're going to be recording these shows. If you want to come join us live, of course, we will, for the time being, still be at Ollie's or whatever Ollie's will end up being. So, but we are so thankful for Ollie's for opening the door for us for this past year, over a year now that we've been doing this podcast, working on this. So we're so thankful for him and looking forward to continuing this project. So very exciting. We've been off for a few weeks, Easter holiday.
Yep.
I saw you had a good holiday in Washington.
Oh, yeah. So, that was before Easter.
That was before you. Yeah, that was. Okay.
Let's talk about Easter and then we'll talk about that.
Well, yeah.
So how was your Easter?
My Easter was very wonderful. We had the whole family over. We had a prime rib dinner. I
was trying to check the audio and I spilled my beer.
Thank God we can edit this in the podcast.
Yeah, it'll be fine. We're good. I just want to make sure that we're getting picked up, and
we are getting. I'm pretty sure we're getting picked up. Let's not.
Not going to touch it anymore.
Anyway.
Okay, so you had prime rib dinner for Easter.
Prime rib dinner with the grandparents and everything.
Nice.
They are actually now in Texas. They're going to see the eclipse. My aunt actually has. I found this out recently. My aunt has a podcast called Totality. And you can find that on podcast network, Spotify, and all that type of stuff. And it has to do with eclipse. My aunt Letitia is an eclipse chaser. She has been doing it for several years now and really pushed it up after she had gotten diagnosed and then recovered from cancer. So she has gone from everywhere from China to Antarctica to see these eclipses. So this eclipse in Texas, we're from Texas and she lives in Texas. So actually the city of Henderson in Texas have employed her because she's a professional project manager. They have brought her on to set up this amazing educational event in Henderson, Texas. A bunch of telescopes. The schools are going to be going out, and my grandparents are going to be there, joining her, their daughter, in this amazing event. And I'm just so thankful that we have such an amazing family, and my Aunt Letitia, doing so well. But that is Totality. You can find that on your podcasting network. So shout out to my aunt there with her Eclipse pod. I've lost the word for a minute. The Eclipse podcast. It's actually amazing the type of people she can get on and all the interviews that she's been doing. So she's been very successful with that. So good. Cool. So shout out to that. But how was your Easter?
So I'll do Easter and then let's do this first. So eclipse first. So eclipse. Shout out to Calusa Nature Center and Planetarium here. They're actually going to be doing a special eclipse day tomorrow. So if you're going to be here in Southwest Florida, that's a place that you can go and check it out.
What is Eclipse Day?
Eclipse Day.
Oh, Eclipse Day.
Eclipse Day. So if you want to come and see, we have glasses, special glasses to protect your eyes so you can actually observe the eclipse. And then we have some planetarium shows as well as the live NASA feed. We're not getting the totality here. We are getting, I think, about 56% or something along those lines. So we're getting a little bit more than half. So we'll get a pretty good show, but not getting the whole eclipse. So it's interesting. So just if you're looking between 12 and 4:45 tomorrow, Calusa Nature Center right here in Southwest Florida is a place to do it. Okay, but before we move back to Easter.
Yes.
Apocalypse or no?
What apocalypse?
For the eclipse.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I've heard those before. There's a bunch of people saying that the red heifer is going to be sacrificed. And I'm like, the Bible tells you very specifically, we will not know the day nor the hour. So we won't even know the hour. So it'll happen if the end of times is going to happen very, very Just joking. Yeah. So, but yes, the point is that
That was good. That was good.
And we're not going to know. We're not even going to know by day. Looking at these prophecies do nothing. I remember back in 2009, 2010, there was some person who was making these ridiculous prophecies about it. And I believed it and I was freaking out, and then it didn't happen. And I was like, oh, okay. There's nothing to worry about then. So I'm not too worried about it. It's an eclipse that we've known about. It's going to be very beautiful. It's a natural phenomena. So let's not make a big deal about it.
A lot of people are making a big deal about it online. There's a lot of far-right people that are believing that this is the rapture coming, and that it's gone as
and
far.
I'm sorry, where can someone actually cite to me where the rapture is in the Bible? Because it's actually not in the Bible. Just so everyone knows, it's
all I know is that there's a lot of people that are freaked out, and so much so that Glades County Schools is even allowing people to pick up their children early in an abundance of caution in relation to the eclipse.
That's why they're doing it. I thought it was just because they wanted people to see the eclipse. But that is kind of, I didn't realize that would be the reason why. No, I think, I mean, obviously you have conspiracy theorists and doomsday preppers who are like, this is the end of times, and a bunch of people who obviously think Biden's the Antichrist for some reason. So it makes sense that you have
just like some people think Trump is the savior.
Yes, and vice versa. There's a lot of people who think Trump is the Antichrist or Trump is this, super villain.
There is no one who believes that Joe Biden is a savior.
No, well, that's fair. I give you that much. I will give you that much. At least Democrats are saying enough to realize not to worship.
We were very excited that Biden was going to stop Trump's presidency, but by no means. That's why we don't have the hats and the flags and the T-shirts and the shoes and the.
Yeah, I know the mainstream media is trying to make blue MAGA a thing, but it's definitely not hitting with the grass. It's not hitting with the grassroots.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing because it was pragmatic. Our vote for Joe Biden was pragmatic, to say the least. So anyway, all right. So back to Easter. So my Easter was great. With the kids, Easter egg hunt. We did the Easter bunny baskets and stuff, and had a nice brunch with my in-laws, and then we went to the Dunbar Easter Parade.
Oh,
which was really fun. Always a fun event over in Fort Myers. I actually was here with Chris Proya as one of our candidates that walked in here. So I was driving Chris's car in the Easter Parade.
Oh, nice.
And he was hustling for the voters over there.
Unstoppable.
He's unstoppable. That's right. So that was fun. It's always huge. They turned the route around this year, so it was like a longer route. And the one truism of the Dunbar Easter Parade is this: you never have enough candy. No matter how much candy you think you get, no matter how many times you pool your candy together, you don't have enough. There are so many kids, and you're trying to give candy to all the kids. You want all the kids to be happy, and you always run out.
That's interesting. I wish Cape Coral had a parade like that, but it's great that Dunbar.
Oh, it's so fun.
How long has it been going on?
That was actually the 80th anniversary.
Whoa!
The 80th anniversary of the Dunbar Easter Parade.
That is some history. So that would have been.
And here's the other fun part about the history of the Dunbar Easter Parade. The Dunbar Easter Parade was specifically started in response to the Black community not being allowed to participate in the Edison Festival of Light during the segregation era, and so the community came together and started their own parade, and they've continued that tradition since.
And the history of Dunbar is definitely not our best history, but it's definitely an interesting and important history to learn about if you live here in Lee County. It was very much that segregated area of Fort Myers, and
formerly known as Safety Hill.
But that's the Dunbar School was one of the first education systems.
It was the only high school that was accessible to Black students from Tampa to Miami until 1973.
I didn't even realize that. See, you learn a lot, and it's an unfortunate history, but a very powerful history that I think a lot of people should know about.
All right, so let's talk about the other big stuff.
Let's talk about your other story. This is a fun thing. When I saw it on Facebook, I enjoyed myself. Let me just say, I very much enjoyed myself.
Yes. So Right, actually, the week before Easter on Tuesday, there was the opening of the Supreme Court hearing on the mifepristone case, which, if you're not aware, mifepristone is one of the 2 cocktails in a chemical abortion, which is actually 80% of abortions are chemical abortions. 80% of the
This
abortions
is like
in
your
the first
Plan B
trimester.
morning after pill stuff, right?
No, Plan B is something else. This is if you go to the doctor very early.
Shows what I know.
Yeah. Very early in your pregnancy, and you say, okay, I want to terminate the pregnancy. You take mifepristone and misoprostol, and you take that 2 combination, and it basically evacuates the uterus. It's also used in after miscarriages and to help ectopic pregnancies, other things like that. So if there's any,
it has other medical purposes.
Yeah, it has other medical purposes that is related to reproductive care, but not explicitly abortion. So there had been a case in that came up in Amarillo, Texas. Some people call it judicial shopping, but there's a very favorable judge, a very anti-abortion judge there. And so this case came up there to challenge mifepristone safety, even though its health and safety record makes it safer than Tylenol in terms of its negative side effects. But the Supreme Court, this case now went all the way through the courts in Texas to the Supreme Court. And the ruling that we're waiting on is whether or not this is going to be an approved drug used by the FDA for the purposes of abortion. So the hearing opened up the 26th of March, and I traveled to Washington, D.C. to participate in a planned civil disobedience with a bunch of organizations, including Women's March and Center for Popular Democracy, Planned Parenthood, National Organization of Women were all there. There was also counter protesters there, people who were hoping that mifepristone would get ruled illegal. And we participated in a rally outside, but we woke up bright and early, and the attempt was to have hundreds of people be arrested by occupying the intersections all around the Supreme Court. So that was the plan. Oh, there was a lot of planning. Oh yeah, this was 100% planned. It was civil disobedience.
Yeah. So they stormed the Supreme Court. That's what
happened.
Hold
on. You're gonna like this next part. Okay. So what ended up happening is we marched down the rally. We had 4 different groups that went to these corners. But we did not get arrested. And this is why, because all of the other groups that were there pulled a permit to close the roads. So the police were just like, great, you're allowed to be there. So we're like, no, we're foiled to get, we were trying to get these plans. Also, we were foiled by that boat, the boat hitting the bridge that happened at 1 a.m. that day. Totally ruined our media cycle. Anyway.
How dare that boat
Anyway,
destroy. I knew there was a conspiracy this whole time.
It's what it was.
See, the right wing have been pointing to the wrong reasons. It was right wing terrorists who this whole time were trying.
We're trying to steal the thunder of the anti-abortion activists. So anyway, so then we're all scrambling, like, okay, what are we gonna do, right? And so all of the abortion activists, abortion care activists, we started to go from the street, First and Constitution, to the sidewalk leading up to the Capitol. Turns out they take that shit serious, guys. Okay.
Yeah, kind of don't want to round 2 of that.
Yeah. So turns out Capitol Police they're a little bit worried when a large group of people starts marching towards the Capitol.
Kind of.
So
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, they take it a little serious. So. Yeah, since January 6th, 2021.
Since when? Exactly. That is a good point. It seems good that they're caring about it now. Where was this a few years ago?
Exactly. So I was kind of in the lead group, and Capitol Police were like, "Oh no!" So they blocked off the sidewalk, and then we kept going. Some people turned back. And then the people that were behind us, they just went to the rally. And then we're starting to march towards the Capitol. And then the Capitol Police surrounded us on their bikes. It was all bike cops. It was kind of funny.
Oh, my God.
And then so we're just like, okay, I guess we're staying here. So there were 13 of us. We sat down and we just waited and chanted.
You got arrested by bike cops.
We got arrested by,
Meanwhile, a bunch of people go into the Capitol on January 6th and no one can do anything.
Right.
Thank God Thank God those bike cops weren't there on January 6th, I guess.
Wow, they were
Where
ready.
were they?
They were ready.
They were ready this time.
The thing, so I had done this before, actually, when in response to the Dobbs decision, right, in 2022, we did do the intersection blocking. There was like 243 of us that were arrested at that time, and the Capitol Police were basically at that point in time, because there's so many of us, they processed us in the park, so they just kind of took us. It was like a whole like little line thing. This time, because there was such a small amount of us, we actually went to the Capitol Police jail. So they handcuffed me. They put my hands behind my back. They put me into the wagon.
That was the photos that I saw.
That was the photos. I was like,
oh,
ABC News, yes, was the one that got the one put me on the cover of with my hands behind my back. Which is interesting too, is also the national executive director of Women's March was along with that, with their senior communications lead. Some other interesting people. There was one man that was arrested with us. I do think that he was with the Women's March organization. A lot of like old school feminists, like ladies that were doing this since the 60s, like an old professor from New York and stuff like that. We had a woman who had just left the Mormon church. Which she had a lot of, that was a lot of good jail stories from that friend. Yeah, but I actually would, want to say, like, I give a lot of credit to the Capitol Police, very organized, very professional. They brought us in, they processed us as quick as possible. We did go back into the jail cell, and it's called a post and forfeiture. So it's like a ticket, but it's even like kind of less than a ticket. It's specifically for people who are arrested during civil disobedience. You pay $50 there and you leave.
Interesting.
So not a misdemeanor, not a felon, nothing like that. So
there's clearly a two-tier justice system. When people storming the Capitol, Democrats can storm the Capitol and just get a slap on the wrist.
If you cooperate with the police and not beat the shit out of them with a flagpole, then you only get a $50 fine.
Then you only get a $50. So if the QAnon shaman just didn't hit anyone, he would have just got
QAnon shaman like broke into the Capitol grounds. No, we didn't even get there. We got like 20 feet from the street. Okay, and then they surrounded us, and we just like sat down. So
and where was the security on January 6th? Seriously,
they were getting the shit beat out of them by the Proud Boys. That's what all the Proud Boys in Southwest Florida went to jail for. Bear Spray, Christopher Worrell, Daniel Scott, Milkshake. He was the one that was the first one to cross the police line and beat the shit out of the police so the rest of the people could follow him in. So they were there. They were just getting the shit kicked out of them. Yeah. But anyway, so ordinarily, like DC has this all the time. There's all sorts of causes. People, it's part of our First Amendment right. And actually, the DC police are very used to it. So as long as everybody's like, cooperating, and this is usually for activists for whatever cause that you are into. This is kind of like you're making a statement. It is a point to get the media.
It is a propaganda of the D type thing.
Yeah,
not in the classic sense of the use of the word, but
no, I mean there's lots of different organizations, lots of different people that use this. It does go back to civil disobedience during the 60s. This one is not the one. I mean, there's another style where you are purposely arrested with the point of having your case be used as a test case. Like that's like Rosa Parks, right? She was arrested with the point of fighting the bus laws, the bus segregation laws, right? That's one type of civil disobedience. Another time is when you're resisting. It's peaceful resistance, though. That was a lot of what Martin Luther King did as well. So, I mean, this has got a long history in the United States. It is an enshrined right of redress in our First Amendment. And I'm very happy to live in a country where we can do this for whatever issue.
And again, there was still, when it got to a point where it was a disorder to the public, then the law stepped in, and that process was done effectively as well. So there is that balance between safety and the public good there. Absolutely. And also just your general right to express your opinion, no matter how wrong your opinion is.
Yeah, coming from the guy who went to the March for Life.
Yes, right? I went to the right one. See, no one got arrested there. We needed to storm the Capitol. It was too cold. We were all freezing.
I was there during the beautiful sakura.
Yeah, you would. I was
cherry
like, why does this have to be March? Why can't it be May for Life? May for Life works so much better.
There you go. I mean, but there was, like I
Yeah.
said, at the rally, there was a small group of people who were there in support of the mifepristone case. I mean, as happens outside the Supreme Court,
and it does seem like, from what I've heard at least, that the Supreme Court is open to keeping it. That there might be some stragglers, at least with some of the questioning that was done, from my understanding. So
yeah, I mean, that was the general analysis, but we won't know until June. So the process is now
I don't know
cases,
how they make the case from a medical standpoint. I can understand from an abortion standpoint trying to make that case.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to say that it's unsafe, like you said, if they can prove that it's medically unsafe, then they're just going to throw it away because it's not standing in that case.
Right.
So I think if they're wanting to do this, they're going about it the wrong way. But abortion has been.
I was going to say there's a lot more shit on abortion that we can talk about, though, for sure.
Well, Florida, of course, we had the three major cases. Obviously, both the abortion amendment is going to be on the ballot, and legalized recreational marijuana, which I am definitely excited for and will be voting for. But of course, it did also approve the 15-week ban, which also approves the 6-week ban. So I'm sure you have some thoughts on that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was very interesting because I believe that this was like the last day that the opinions were going to be released. It was April 1st, which is also quite apropos. It was April Fool's Day. The language so it was kind of confusing for some folks. So to be clear, the Florida Supreme Court was vetting the language of the amendments so that they were consistent with the Constitution of Florida to be put on the ballot. Yeah. It's a normal check. It's part of the process that they go through. And basically, it's like, so you can't just have random things go on to a referendum. So both the adult recreational cannabis legalization amendments passed the snuff of the Florida Supreme Court, as did Amendment 4, the abortion care access rights in the state of Florida did pass. So that was like a separate case. So the other ruling that came out that day was the challenge on the 15-week abortion ban. So the background on that is that in 2023, the Florida legislature passed a 15-week abortion ban, which at the time especially was it was a step towards very restrictive abortion bans in the country. At that point in time, we had the Supreme Court decisions in 1994 that had said that viability was the standard. So essentially, abortion was legal up to viability, which was generally seen at about 22 weeks. So as a test case across the South, lots of organizations were supporting bills in different legislatures in states to test increasingly more restrictive abortion bans. And so actually the case that overturned Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs versus Jackson, Mississippi case, was a 15-week abortion ban. Okay. So Florida had passed its own similar ban in 2023. Now, this case was then tried in the courts on the privacy clause in the state of Florida based on the freedom of religion of a Jewish woman. According to the Jewish faith, life begins at first breath. So any maternal care is necessary and primary according to the religion. So it was the ACLU and some other organizations that were supporting this case going and made its way through the courts all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, challenging, essentially trying to overturn that case. So the ruling of the Florida Supreme Court was that was not valid. It did not violate the privacy clause of the Constitution of Florida, and ergo that bill went into play. Yeah. So once that happened, the 6-week abortion ban, which was passed in 2023, so I'm sorry, the 15-week was 2022. The 6-week abortion ban was passed in 2023, goes into effect 30 days after that court ruling. Yep. And that's the way that bill was written because of the ongoing litigation around that. So we currently have and have had, because there was not a stay was not approved, but there's a 15-week abortion ban in the state of Florida that's ongoing. And then that will soon turn into a 6-week abortion ban come the end of April.
All right. Yeah, that fills everything in, I think. So
what do you think about that?
What are my thing? Well, obviously we've discussed my pro-life stance on this, so I'm obviously going to be voting no on the abortion amendment. With that being said, and I don't want to say I'm glad that the amendment is on the ballot, because I'm not glad that it's on the ballot, but I think it's necessary that it's on the ballot. I think that blocking it from being on the ballot would have been the wrong decision. The real problem, we've discussed this in previous podcasts, but the real issue with the abortion, I call it the Harry Potter prophecy problem. So if you've read Harry Potter, there's that prophecy where Harry has to kill Voldemort, or Voldemort has to kill Harry, and the line is neither can live while the other survives. The right to bodily autonomy and the right to life of the unborn cannot coexist. Neither of them can live with the other. So it's where I know many of my pro-lifers might disagree with me on this, but I think the right to bodily autonomy is a legitimate right. Just as in my opinion, or my belief is that the right to life for the unborn, for me, is really the right to exist when it comes down to it. But I think that's important too. So I don't see any other way to resolve this outside of the constitutional Republican means that we have through a ballot initiative. And again, this is going to be much tougher than other places. Most states have a 50%, and most of these ballot initiatives that have passed have gotten to about 57, 58. In Florida, they need a 60% threshold. So it's a much higher threshold, and which would be a much clearer statement if it doesn't reach it. But I think it's important that we do have this vote, and I do think Republicans are obviously going to fight to make sure people vote against it, as I'm sure you guys are going to fight for it. But I think the bigger issue, which I'm sure you're excited about, is obviously this puts Florida in play, and Biden has already called Florida as in play because of this issue. Yep. This is going to bring both amendments are going to bring Democrats to the ballot. Let's be clear, though. I think you do have enough Republicans who also support legalized recreational marijuana as well, because it's an issue of liberty. It's an issue of personal freedom, and the Republican Party, generally speaking, is a party of personal and individual liberty.
Except for they want to keep cannabis illegal.
I was like, I know what
you guys. This is what's always so. It's like you just actually put together like so many of the contradictions that there are with the Republicans. So yes, okay, so body autonomy is important, but right to life is important, and those are mutually exclusive concepts. So. Yeah. Okay.
How do we handle it?
Right. Exactly. How do you handle
it?
Your way to handle it is to fucking flip a coin. Essentially, it's like, and it's
it's a vote.
Yeah, but you don't have a moral stance on it, which is fascinating.
No, my moral stance. I'm morally pro-life, but I also that's the problem.
You just said that you're morally a body autonomy as well, and those two are mutually exclusive. So you have to pick a camp.
Yeah. So I pick pro-life, but that's okay. That's what I'm.
Then you don't have a moral imperative around body autonomy.
That would generally be correct based on what I'm saying. Yes, you're right. It's a difficult.
So that's a contradiction.
It is.
And then also you just said the contradiction of that. Yes, there are many Republicans who are supporting liberty and are probably going to vote for the cannabis legalization. However, it's been Republicans that are leading the cause in making it more difficult to access cannabis, legal, medical.
So you're saying that the Republicans aren't listening to the Republican base? Gasp!
I'm saying that the Republicans are full of contradictions, and they do whatever.
No, I will give you that. Account. No, you're 100% true. We are full of contradictions. We are we're a very diverse, complex. Thank you. Whoever said that, complex.
I mean, complex.
You say sarcasm. I will say it as fact. We are a complex group of people.
I mean, yeah, but this is you. I mean, you laid out the issue. You laid out the problem.
Yeah.
That's the thing that really bugs folks a lot of times is that's not consistent, right?
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, I have body autonomy when it comes to getting a vaccine, but I don't have body autonomy when it comes to whether or not I host a pregnancy in my body.
Yeah, exactly. And if you
and you know what that's called, by the way? That's called situational ethics.
Yes.
That means that you don't have a consistent set of ethical principles. It's whatever you think at the time is most beneficial to you.
And we brought this up in the preview.
And that's actually something that you and the Chinese have in common.
Okay. Wow. That went in a totally different direction. What I was going to say, one of the things we did discuss as well is that when you do take away the right to bodily autonomy like that, then you open up yourself to stuff like forced vaccinations, because again, you're putting the value of life and protecting the lives of others. That's the essential statement when you choose life over bodily autonomy. But when you choose life over a bodily autonomy, that means all of our bodies are no longer ours. And it's a Sophie's choice. It's a slippery slope.
So you're on that slippery slope, right over here, got the skis up, just about to go down it. Sean. All right. Anyway,
I think
so yes, of course. So the Democrats, of course, see this as a big opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, Joe Biden said Florida's back in play, which is really good because that actually means that you're going to get national donors. You're going to get investments from the Biden campaign on behalf of the presidential campaign here. That means that you'll get more attention on Florida down ballot races, federal races, and local races. And then actually the turnout. A lot of people have said that this is going to be a turnout race, and both cannabis
and that's the other part of
and abortion is going to be huge for Democratic turnout.
The other part of it is that you still have the 20% of Republicans who did not vote for Trump, even though he's the only person on the ballot. And so, how many of
30%, including the part that vote for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis.
That was like 19-20%.
It was 18% for Nikki Haley and like another 4% the orange one.
I'll have to double check that then. But yeah, it's
like upwards of 30% of people
Republicans who aren't supportive of Trump
in the state of Florida. We're talking about the primary.
Yes,
now.
and primary in the state.
And it was already decided. Like Trump is already officially the candidate, so it's very symbolic.
Florida is a must-win state for us. If Biden flips Florida, we can basically flip all of the other states that we lost in 2020, and we'd still lose. So Florida, that's your miracle situation and my nightmare situation.
Hey, listen, you put weed and abortion on the ballot. Here's the thing that I like is that all of the polls have showed us that a solid 65% of Florida voters believe in right to abortion care and access. And that is without having the effects of the 6-week abortion ban, which is essentially a total abortion ban go into effect. That's another thing that's in play here. So not only do we have the situation where we have, Chris just brought me another beer. Thank you, buddy. Not only do we have the situation where you had laws and potential and hypothetical effects coming, you are actually looking at a good solid 6 months of some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country go into effect.
Yeah.
So what will happen is you will have babies born from rape and incest. You will have women die because they cannot have access to services because the way that the law is written is you have to get 2 opinions to, make sure that you are really terminating a pregnancy and the time limit and all that stuff. And there's going to be a lot of suffering for women, especially once a 6-week abortion ban comes in, and that is going to galvanize voters. Yeah, I hate to say it like that because I value.
You're not wrong. No, you're not wrong.
But like the stories that we've already heard that have tugged at our heartstrings, the 10-year-old in Ohio that had to flee across state lines to have an abortion after incest, the mother of 2 in Texas, Katie Cox, who had to get multiple judgments and court orders. She was trying to have an abortion because she had abortion that was threatening her life. She ended up having to leave the state so she can continue to be a mother to her other 2 children. We're going to see those types of stories come out of Florida here. And it will really solidify folks, I think, in the abortion access camp.
There's going to be a lot. There's definitely going to be a lot of emotional stories. And unfortunately, you can't really make an emotional pro-life story, even though for all of us in the pro-life movement, it's a very emotional thing because of the fact that we feel like we're protecting life and we're putting a value on the unborn life. But it's hard to really put a sympathetic story on something that has yet to be born or on someone that has yet to be born. And so it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for us. I mean,
you guys have like hypothetical versus reality, I think is your real big problem here is that it's like the what if versus what is. And the real life cost of not having abortion access is women dying from sepsis, from abortion, from miscarriages, of women losing their fertility from not having access to the very same abortion medicine and procedures that are used post miscarriage. The DNC is the exact same procedure because doctors don't want to go to jail and things like that. So, you're talking about real human tragedy. You're talking about women bleeding out. In the states that pass these restrictive abortion laws, maternal mortality increased up to 20%. So we are literally talking about women dying. We are talking about babies dying. Your infant mortality increased as well because guess what? Women are forced to carry to term babies that are going to die in their arms within hours, minutes of their birth. I mean, it's a horrific thing. And that's the thing that I always want to put back into folks' minds. These are situations that people are put in These are not people just going, oh, fuck, I'm pregnant again. I got to have an abortion. That is the very small majority of people that are choosing this. These are people who are in the most horrific decision in their life. The decision of whether you're going to die to try and bring a child into the world or live to take care of your other two children, or whether or not you're going to die at your husband's hands or be tied to him because you're pregnant with another child, whether or not you're going to die because of an ectopic pregnancy and risk not having the ability to have your children future in life or get it taken care of. These are not decisions that are easy to make. And not to mention the entire criminalization of reproduction and pregnancy that could very easily criminalize miscarriage, something again that's horrible and tragic. And so this really for me ultimately goes back to being freedom. Yeah. Freedom to make the decision with your family, your doctor, and whoever is important in your life, and be okay with that decision and not be chastised by people who are mischaracterizing you, because these are awful situations. And here's the other thing. 20% of pregnancies end in miscarriage, and most women have multiple pregnancies. So it's very likely that most women at some point in their life will have a miscarriage. So if you criminalize something that most women experience at some point in their life, you are going to end up on the wrong side of history. And that's exactly where we stand today.
But a miscarriage is not an abortion. And I do agree with you, like in those areas where you're having people who have medical situations where it is a life or death situation, then obviously those rules need to be loosened, because those doctors should not have to feel that fear of providing life-saving care to these women, like that woman in Texas. I think that was freaking ridiculous that she had to go through all that. And that is a problem, unfortunately, with Republican legislators. They do this quite a bit where they pass broad language.
Right.
And not understanding the specifics. And that's where I see where you're going with that. Where I would disagree with you, though, is I don't think that every single abortion is this medical life or death situation. I do think you do have a portion of people who don't want it for a variety of reasons. Many of them legitimate, I would imagine, and including, for example, the abusive relationship. But you also have women who are forced to have abortions as well from their partners. So regardless of that,
I don't think that's legal.
It's not legal, but they can pressure them, and they shouldn't. But anyway,
here's the difference. Like this is always the thing with like the.
Well, it's not legal for someone to abuse another person either. And so if she's in that abusive relationship, why can't, there's also legal ramifications, legal ways that she can get out of that relationship.
Right. But like so when you go in and take any of these procedures, the doctor has to ensure that you as an adult you were giving consent for that. So you can be coerced in a whole bunch of different ways. Yes. But like, that's like made up shit, Sean. I'm gonna just be fucking real for you. Like that is not a fucking situation. If it's a situation where somebody's saying like, "Hey, you don't want it," I mean, like there's a ton of reasons why that's a very very minority component of it.
I'm not
what
saying
you have a lot of though. You have people who are in very bad financial situation. Yeah. You have people who are addicted to drugs.
Which is again when we first talked about this issue, why I said that if we're going to be doing these bans on abortions, we're going to need to, as Republicans, put our money where our mouth is and provide these programs for these women who are going to be forced to have these children. They need to have the proper medical care. And if it needs to be provided by the taxpayer, it needs to be provided by the taxpayer, because it's us as the people through our elected officials who impose this on these women. And we need to provide for those who can't provide for their children the resources they can to be successful single mothers and still be able to pursue either career or school or whatever they're trying to do as well. Yeah. So this is going to require, in my opinion, we need to put our money where our mouth is with more welfare programs and unfortunately higher taxes, because that's what matters, is the life of these children that are going to be born. But yeah, it's a difficult situation for these women.
It's where the ethical ambiguity comes in again, right? Because we don't have those. And here's the thing.
You're right. We don't.
Here's the thing. You're 100% correct. And I agree with you that if we're going to have this stance, then we absolutely should have support for these children. But we don't.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of it. And if we did, actually, not only would you reduce abortions, you absolutely would reduce abortions. But if you also compared that or added in with that, poverty alleviation programs and women's empowerment programs, automatically you would have the fertility rate of women go down.
Yep.
Okay, because those two things demonstrably around the world have proven to increase the power of women and decrease the amount of children that they have in total. And increase the success of the children that they do have. So you're actually talking, like, if we made those types of investments, we would actually have a happier, healthier population that would have lower per family fertility rates. So you would be able to invest more in those children. Those children would be happier, more stable, and more taken care of.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't agree that I'm supportive of lowering fertility rates, but I do see your point in what you're saying in this sense.
It's a choice.
Yes, we allow more women to have that ability and provide those resources for those women who want to have families, so they don't have to feel worried and feel like they have to have this abortion. And you're absolutely right. You have a lot of women who are, based on the situation that they're in, feel like they need to take this choice. And it's devastating. And I feel like we as Republicans have been too focused on banning abortions and providing the resources to these women, especially in the church. This is the church's responsibility, especially like the Catholic Church and all these religious institutions that have been providing and essentially grifting off of the abortion issue for like 50 years. Let's be real about it. We should have been doing that. We should have been providing these resources. So that is where we are in 100% agreement, is we are using the stick and not the carrot. We're not providing the tools necessary to help these women, to help these mothers, to give them a reason to not have an abortion. We really should be focused on giving them a reason not to have an abortion, as opposed to forcing them not to have an abortion.
Right.
I think that's where we agree. But I think we've talked that one to death.
Hey, it's going to be the hot issue of 2024. That's all there is to it, especially here in the state of Florida.
It is.
It is,
and it's hard. And it's hard for Republicans. Hey, look at me. I mean, I have a hard time talking about it. I really do. It is. I'm serious. I'm not going to lie about it. I hate talking about abortion. I feel morally strongly on my pro-life beliefs, but it's hard to really make that argument, because it is. You're absolutely right. It's an issue of bodily autonomy and freedom, and the consequences of it. Even though I feel so strongly morally of it, I understand the consequences of it from a legal and constitutional standpoint.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and this is the thing that is always a component of our democracy and our country that values religious freedom, is you can feel that way.
Yeah.
And I can feel that way. And actually, personally, that is how I feel. Like, that's how I feel.
I mean, you've had a few children now. So I'm
assuming I've had 3 children. I've had 2 miscarriages, and I've even had an opportunity to help a family member. Like, I offered, she was going to have an abortion, and I said, hey, I will come live with us. I will help you get a job. I will take care of that child. I was going to take them all in, and she still chose to have an abortion because that's my values. Yeah. That's my values, right?
You're pro-choice, but not pro-abortion. You're actually one of those people.
I believe that's how I believe. I did grow up Catholic, and I do believe in the value of life. But here's the difference: is like, I don't believe that my beliefs have to guide everybody's decisions, and I don't believe that I have the vantage point to make the decision when somebody else is getting information from their doctor and their situation. I know that it's complex enough out there, right?
Yeah.
And that the role of the state, the role of the government, is to make laws that are applicable to everybody and not enforce a particular religious perspective or dogma on people. They have to make the best decision for all of the people and the country at large. That's a very difficult thing for legislators to do.
It is. It's hard to really determine what's the best thing for the country, especially when there's such opposing views of what we need to do to make America great, to borrow a parlance. but we've talked this one to death. We must have spent most of our day on this.
No, that's fine. Like I said, this is the issue. But let's talk about Make America Great Again, and let's talk about the earthquakes. Because where were those earthquakes epicentered again? In New York over the weekend?
In New Jersey or New York?
There was one in Bedminster, New Jersey, where Trump has a golf course. And then there was one in New York near another one of his golf courses there. So I'm just saying, like, if you were a God-believing type of person.
You'd think that all these people who are talking about the eclipse would see the sign.
I mean, like, just earthquakes, like, in the center of Trump's golf courses. It's just, it feels like maybe a little bit of a sign.
Little baby omen.
I'm just joking. Actually, it's from global warming.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, how is it from global warming? Wait. How is it earthquake?
Okay, this is how it works. Okay.
Oh my God.
It's not fracking. It's definitely not fracking. It's definitely global warming. Here's how it works. Okay. So the connection between earthquakes being an increase in earthquakes in areas where they traditionally hadn't been and global warming is this. When we had the past ice age 10,000 years ago, ice is super heavy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it pushes down on the land, okay? And so there are certain areas, right, in the last ice age where the ice receded.
Okay.
That ice has been pushing down on the land.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the hottest months on record, month in and month out through 2023. 2023 was the hottest year on record. We've had a significant amount of ice sheet lost in the Arctic in particular. What that means is as the ice is retreating, the land is getting less pressure on it. Okay, so as the land gets less pressure, it starts to bounce back. So imagine squeezing a sponge, right? And then releasing it. And as the sponge comes up, okay, it starts to fill up more space. So that seismic activity is related to that additional expansion of the land. So that area in particular is getting some of that kind of spring back as the ice is melting in other regions.
Wow. That is another thing on the long list of things that global warming is causing. I don't really know how to break that.
It's a complex system. It's a very difficult. It's a complex system.
I'm not a scientist, so I don't really.
Well, there's some. I just read a few articles on it that were really good. I mean, listen, this is what scientists study. They love this stuff. But speaking of that, so we're also looking at. We just had released this year the Colorado State University analysis prediction for the Atlantic hurricane season. So apparently we're looking at a really supercharged season this year. They are estimating 23 named storms. I think it's 11 hurricanes and 5 major hurricanes. And I think a major hurricane is 3 and above. I know I think it was Washington State had done another prediction earlier this year that named Southwest Florida as one of like the 5 hotspot areas where they were predicting likely hurricanes to strike. This is all being supercharged, of course, by the heated waters in the Gulf.
That I do know is caused from global warming. That one I understand as global warming. That one I can understand. The Earth part is like, oh, now the ice is melting, and therefore the stuff is like becoming a sponge or whatever.
Well, it's not becoming a sponge. It's raising. So after the pressure is done, that starts to raise, and at some point, the way that the earthquakes work is when basically something kind of like jumps, right? So you can't necessarily predict it. It's just as stuff is moving. But
this is why Republicans don't believe in science. It's so confusing.
Well, I mean, you got to read shit and you got to understand, and it is complex, and some people don't have the patience for complexity. I've noticed that increasingly people have lower patience for complexity.
In politics, actually.
Especially, and our media doesn't do super great, especially reporting on science things. It's very like, psh. It's like, okay, they would have took from what I said. Okay, it's a sponge, and you're like, wait, not exactly. Like,
that's exactly what I took out of it. See,
there you go. I mean, but it's this is why, like, the scientists who study that stuff, we should listen to them. Like, it's like the movies, like right before you get to the end and the scientists are screaming, and you're like, well, we should maybe listen to these. Like, oh no, that's not what's going on. Like, well, like let's maybe see what they have to say.
So something I wanted to bring up. So right now, across the street from us is the chili cook-off. The chili cook-off. I actually got some chili from a council member, Bobby Welsh, who was the lone councilman who voted no.
Is that why you're eating his chili?
Well, that, and also it's because it's delicious chili. He actually made. I'm not a chili guy, but he made this like turkey bean chili. It was really good, so I'm enjoying it. But Bobby was the lone no vote on the stipend that we've been talking about pretty constantly on this podcast for those who've been following us for quite some time. But the thing that we were talking about a few of the issues, J.C. Park, which he is still supportive of the J.C. Park improvements. I think he made a compelling case to me about what was getting there. It's going to be a little bit less than I initially expected, but I still think he has a hard sell, especially with that community there and how big of an issue it's been, which he recognizes. But he did tell me that they're going to be discussing an ordinance that he has proposed to repeal the stipend at the committee of the whole meeting on Wednesday at 9 a.m. I am definitely going to post that on the Preservation PAC Facebook page so they are aware, and hopefully we can have a large group of people go in, because the mayor and the council, they need to understand that this is a politically losing issue. Like, if you want to be reelected, you have to support this resolution. You have to repeal the stipend. You just have to. It has to be done. I mean, but it doesn't seem like either the council doesn't realize how politically damaging it is, or they just don't think that it's actually going to be that politically damaging, when again it is. When is the Democrats and Republicans been united on a single issue?
In the 15 years that I've lived in Southwest Florida, seen Democrats and Republicans come together the way that they've come together around the opposition to the
and working together.
And working together. Yes.
Do you know how hard it is to get us to work together? We hardly work well together. You've seen us on this podcast, right? Sometimes we're agreeing. This is about as good as it gets. Okay, we can't really. I get attacked all the time by my Republican colleagues for this podcast. They're like, "Why do you keep doing this podcast?" All right, the fact that we can get Republicans and Democrats working together on the same page, cordial, friendly. I think this is honestly a very good thing for our community, because again, one of the reasons we do this podcast is because we need to stop seeing each other as enemies.
Right.
I think Biden said it best, ironically, in 2012 when he didn't want to run, when he said, Republicans are not our enemies, they are our opposition. And I feel the same way about Democrats. Yeah. I don't see you guys as our enemies.
I agree.
I see you as our His Majesty's loyal opposition, if you will. You know, watching too. I got Netflix, got some Crown going. So, but anyway.
That's really funny.
That's the I wanted to bring that up because we were running a little bit long. I did want to
the Crown.
Yeah, the Crown. Yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about the Kate Middleton scandal?
No, I don't want to talk about. I don't care about
I was
that.
Be like, that's a surprise.
We were gonna talk about the incident at where's it, the kitchen place? I don't even know the guy's name.
Oh, World Central Kitchen. Jose
Andres situation where there was it seems to have been a targeted attack on his goods. Now,
the aid organization, they provide food. They were apparently had it coordinated with the Israeli government that they were going to be bringing in this aid, this food to folks in Gaza. And there was an attack on their convoy that killed 7 of the aid workers.
It was multiple strikes. So it was clearly targeted. I do know 2 IDF soldiers have been removed, and there's an investigation. So it's unclear as to whether or not it was. I don't see how it could have been a mistake, honestly. If you had the,
I don't think anybody's been saying it's a mistake, and
Israel has.
No. I think that that Israel just came out with a statement saying that it protocol was not followed. Was what they had said.
Protocol was not followed. Fair.
Which was not like, it was a mistake. It was like, this thing actually happened. But we don't know why.
I think, again, something we tend to forget is the human element of the people being lost here. And it's both. And we and my mom, we watch SNL all the time when it comes on Saturday. Before this episode, last episode was Rami Youssef, who made a very compelling call, not just for a ceasefire in Gaza, but for the release of the hostages, which I believe a ceasefire and a hostage release have to go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. I would be 100% supportive of a ceasefire if it came with hostage release. I still believe that Israel needs to wipe out Hamas. I think they cannot peacefully coexist with Hamas, and they need to do what needs to be done. But I think, especially after this, I think we have helped Israel enough, and I think we should put a pause on military sales until this conflict concludes. I think Israel has we've sold them a lot of weapons as it is.
Yep.
I cannot believe that they don't have enough to do what they need to do. So I don't see any reason why the United States needs to continue to be directly involved with this when civilian lives are being lost. Again, with that being said, Israel needs to do what it needs to do to wipe out Hamas. I am personally of the opinion that either Israel or Egypt needs to annex the Gaza Strip, because I do not think that an independent Gaza can exist at this time. I would support an independent West Bank, but not an independent Gaza. So I think either Israel or Egypt needs to annex that territory, because it is not safe. They cannot peacefully coexist with each other, unfortunately. But at the same time, I don't think, as the United States, again, our party, the Republican Party, has become a very anti-war party these days. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy that we've turned in that direction. And even though you guys don't like Trump, that was sort of the direction that Trump and the Trump movement has turned us into. So I definitely don't think that we need to continue providing military support for this conflict. Israel could, I don't want to say go it alone, but Israel has enough from us that they can fulfill this mission without getting more from us. So I think, especially after what had happened with these aid workers, that if as they say, protocol wasn't followed, we can't trust them to follow protocol with our military weapons and not protect civilians, which Joe Biden, in my opinion, rightfully has asked Bibi Netanyahu to do: protect these civilians, protect these aid workers. So I am now of the opinion that we need to stop military support until the conflict is over.
Interesting. So I do. So there this week we did have a series of sales that went on to Israel that were part of scheduled Department of Defense partnership sales. So that wasn't part of an additional the funding request that was going through Congress. And yeah, it does seem that Biden is laying more pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to allow aid to come in. And especially in the wake of the killing of the World Central Kitchen.
This is definitely going to give him an avenue to take that route and sort of push away from Israel, which he needs to do, mainly to protect his butt from all of the Arab Americans who are trying.
Yeah, people are pissed. Well, it's not just Arab Americans, by the way. So the Gaza conflict has really opened a fissure with the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Because you also have young people, you have Black folks, and then you also have, Arab Americans and Muslim folks who are very upset about this. But I think it's been really trying, especially for the young folks too, saying like, hey, America is supposed to be standing up for human rights and standing up for peace and democracy. Yet they're basically looking the other way and funding a genocide. That doesn't seem to comport with our values.
I wouldn't describe it as a genocide, but I understand the
33,000 deaths to 1,200 deaths is pretty significant. And
it's significant, but I wouldn't describe it as a genocide.
I would. I'll take a stance on that.
All right. Well, that's
but we can disagree on that. Yeah. That's fine, because there's plenty of disagreement on that.
I agree with. I can see what you're saying, though, that they don't want to fund a conflict with innocent civilians getting killed.
Exactly.
Constantly.
We did see also the United Nations did pass a resolution for ceasefire this week, with the United States abstaining from the vote. Of course, one of the confounding factors of the United Nations is that there's really no enforcement mechanism. So it's really just the whole world going.
Did the ceasefire call include release of hostages?
I'm not sure, actually.
See, that's again,
I do agree with that.
Yeah, we can't have a ceasefire if there's not going to be a simultaneous release of hostages. That is unfair. That is unfair to ask Israel to stop the conflict when they're not having their people released. It is completely unfair. If we're talking about human rights, we have to talk about the human rights of the Israelis and other innocent civilians, not just Israelis. There's foreigners there too. Americans that I still think are still being trapped there. Absolutely. Okay? We have to think about them as well as the innocent people of Gaza. And I think that because of how polarizing this has been, we tend to forget that. So as long as, again, I think we both agree, we've hit this nail on the head. We have a ceasefire with hostage release. Hopefully we can get another one of those rounds negotiated soon. And Biden's been talking about it ever since he's been eating ice cream with Seth Meyers. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it stands. The U.S. is still trying to figure out how to build that port or whatever that Biden talked about in the State of the Union. But I know he has put additional pressure, and there's been some significant movement against Benjamin Netanyahu at this point in time too.
He's been protesting against him.
And just before we leave, though, I just want to say, like, it is clear that Israel is moving away from the two-state solution. They have said that it's impossible. I don't know if annexation is necessarily the right word or the right thing. I don't know if Egypt is going to take that on, but making it a truly autonomous region would actually potentially be a solution. What is not going to be acceptable from my perspective is to go back to it being an apartheid state where Palestinian people are essentially trapped in their areas, that they face incursions and their homes being taken because of settlers, and they don't have the opportunities and the resources at their disposal. So,
and I would honestly, I still prefer a two-state solution, but we can't have a two-state solution with Hamas. It's impossible.
Yes, and let's be clear that the official foreign policy stance of the United States is to support a two-state solution. That has been consistent, and there hasn't been any change from that as of yet. So what that looks like, though, is like,
and let's not forget,
with Israel saying they're not going to do it,
and
I don't know.
Until we backtracked on it, Trump even brought up that he would support a two-state solution during the debates, and then he was forced to backtrack on that. Boy, that's something I remember very distinctly on one of the thousands of debates they had in 2016.
Official state policy. Our official policy is a two-state solution.
But that's that. It's something I definitely would generally
I think
agree
that
with.
People always push around on it, and they, are you going to change it? It's the same thing. Honestly, it's the same discussion as with China and Taiwan. Mm-hmm. Our official foreign policy position is a two-state solution.
Well, not really with China and Taiwan. We won't officially say it's a two-state solution.
No, it is, though. It's a two-state solution. But actually, with China, they also have strategic ambiguity. So they don't ever say it.
Yeah.
And that's actually the name of the policy, guys.
Yes, I know.
Strategic ambiguity.
We're
like, well, Taiwan's this thing over here, but we don't really ever say that it's its own country. As long as we never say it's its own country, then we're... Anyway. So,
God forbid.
Lord. Okay, so we've gone through a whole lot today.
Good. Yeah, but we've been gone for almost a month now, so it makes sense. If you can be down here in 30 minutes, you can still make some of this chili for the chicken cook-off. But if not, thank you again for watching all. I guess 0 of you people. Wow.
Oh, people will watch. We always actually get a ton of people who watch on YouTube. Maybe not necessarily the live show, but they definitely watch afterwards. And of course, you can always catch this show on any of the places where you get your podcast. It's Apple Music, Spotify, Audible, all of those great places. There's a ton of other places I don't even know, like TuneIn and any place. We're officially hosted on Podbean as well. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can listen to us. You can watch the episode in its entirety on our YouTube page. And then if you subscribe for $4.99 a month, we'll send it to you directly at bigmouthmediafl.com. That helps us to continue to produce amazing shows like this. I've been your Democratic host, Dr. Cindy Banyai.
I'm your Republican host, Sean Hartman.
And this has been a Democrat and Republican walk into a bar. Thanks once again to our host, Ollie's Pub in Cape Coral, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.